Alrighty, friends. Welcome back to the ResQ show. I'm Chris. That's Taryn. In her war outfit, I was told.
Yes. What's up, people?
How are you feeling?
I'm feeling groovy. How are you feeling?
I'm cool. So that makes us cool and groovy.
Yes, it does. We have a fun topic today.
Yeah, amen. So, yeah, we're going to get into it, and Taryn's going to drive this train. I just want to let you all know, first of all, we want to talk to you. This is our first show without a guest, which is pretty amazing. I didn't think we'd go this long.
Yeah.
But if you haven't heard our interviews with Jim last week and Christian the week before, please check them out. Share them, and they're very, very helpful, I think, and just great examples of fellow believers who are approaching it from different directions but seeing the same stuff. And so, take heart in that. And we want to hear from you in any way you want to. You see our Twitter handles below our pictures there. Get in touch with us on those if you'd like. You can, if you still use email, you can do that. Pastor Manti is me at protonmail.com, and she is Tyrannosaurus, just like her Twitter name, at protonmail.com. There's also a contact form, by the way, on our website. You can use that as well. ResQshow.com. Q with a Q, okay? ResQshow.com. Fill out the contact form. We'd love to hear from you. Even if it's just a talk, you want to reach out to somebody, you need an ear or whatever. Feel free to use that. But certainly we do want to bring you on. You don't have to be a famous person. You don't have to have written a book or any of that stuff. We just want to hear mostly from believers, I think, right? Who are struggling with this maybe, or don't know what to think, or help their families or friends, or maybe they're stuck in it and like, you guys are crazy. Well, come, let's chat about it. That's no problem. So do that and utilize it. And so today, I think that's all I wanted to say about that, Forrest. So today, right, we're talking about something that most folks would probably say, I'm not one of those people, which is anti-Semitism and the right. And both Taryn and I are squarely on the right. I don't know how you could define that otherwise, but that's one of the first, things we hear sometimes. Oh, how you're not one of us or whatever. Not true. We're there, but then there's this looming thing called anti-Semitism that is raising up its head again. So, Taryn, this is, I know, very near and dear to your heart, and you are pretty much an expert at this point on it. So why don't you lead us with where you believe this has been and where it's going?
Okay, thank you, Chris. So I would hardly call myself an expert, but I do appreciate that. There's just so much out there to study. And I would love if anyone hears me say anything that's inaccurate or in question, just reach out and let me know. I love to discuss things like that and to just keep studying so that I can improve my accuracy in general. Some of these things are a little bit difficult to tease out, and there's a lot of stuff there. I really want to thank the platform we're on, YouTube, for allowing us to just have the show like this, talking about things like the evils of anti-Semitism and their realities is extremely important right now because we're obviously seeing a great amount of it rising in the entire earth from many different directions. So if you were one to follow conspiracy theories, I would say the anti-Semitism of the devil is probably the biggest conspiracy that actually exists, in my opinion, because you have, even from the beginning of the past century, when we talk about Europe and anti-Semitism in Europe, there's communist Russia, there's National Socialism in Germany with Hitler, and these two forces were very opposed to one another, but united in anti-Semitic rhetoric, which is not a coincidence, not a coincidence. So anyway, we are starting to see, as I begin, I just want to give a quick disclaimer. Most QAnon Christians are not anti-Semitic. We understand that. As Dr. Jim stated in our last show, it tends to not really be a problem among most Q supporters in general. However, the neo-Nazi rhetoric on places like Telegram, which we'll discuss later in the show, has exploded very recently with the huge influx of QAnons merging with those who are spouting anti-Semitic and hateful rhetoric. In fact, we're talking about, at our last glance, which was a few weeks ago, about 300,000 more people than one would typically find on one of these kind of creepy anti-Semitic internet boards. So you probably, if you're a Christian in the QAnon movement, you are most likely not at all an anti-Semite. You probably don't need to be educated on the evils of anti-Semitism. I'm sure you agree that you as a Christian have a responsibility towards those in this movement who might become or are becoming anti-Semitic or following conspiracy theories that are racist and evil. You have a responsibility to evangelize those people, pull them out of anti-Semitism, because you are close to them, you're following the same places. We trust you in that. Whether you believe we're correct or not, we trust that you as a follower of Jesus will make a commitment to oppose anti-Semitism when you encounter it online and in the real world. We're going to see more and more of it in the future. So having said all of that, hey, Pastor Chris, do you want to go through some of the covenants in the Bible for anyone who might not?
Of course. That's what makes God awesome, right?
Yeah.
He makes promises and he keeps them, unlike people.
That was really well put.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. The cause of God's promises to Israel is about God's reputation, right?
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. He's got to honor himself. I mean, as you're going to talk about, there's, instance after instance after instance. The Jews look really bad in the Bible, right? Because they keep breaking it. But the point is that God says, well, even though you've done that, I'm going to keep it. That's why he's awesome.
Yeah, and any of us would look very bad in the Bible. We are all sinners. There's nothing surprising about that to anyone who's honest with themselves. So we have specific covenants that God made. We have 8 in Scripture, but we're going to go over a few of the major ones.
That's crazy, dude.
Yeah.
8.
Edenic, Adamic. So then there's the priestly covenant, right? The Noahide, the Mosaic, the Davidic, the New Covenant. That's 7. I think I'm missing one. And the Mystery Covenant.
Sure. This is the one you get.
Maybe there are only 7. Yeah, I think.
The bonus episode of ResQ Show will have the bonus covenant.
Yes. All right.
Yeah. So how does this apply to anti-Semitism, Taryn? What are we talking about here? Why would that be related?
Yeah, when we discuss things, some of you watching may be very familiar with this material, and some maybe not, especially if there are a few people watching who may believe they know Jesus and yet they are anti-Semitic in some way, shape, or form. God made very specific promises in Scripture to the people of Israel and said that these promises were forever, for all time, and that even when he made a covenant with Abraham, who was the father of the nation of Israel, God walked between pieces of animals and passed like a torch between them and said, may I be ripped apart like these animals if I go against my promise. There's incredibly beautiful language, in fact, where in the Davidic covenant, and David thanks God with such graciousness and excitement afterward, and that's a beautiful chapter. But God, makes these promises and says things poetically like, "Let the earth be," I will break this promise to you, and the earth's foundations are ripped apart. Things like that, things that will never happen. So it's. My paraphrasing of the covenant is a little silly, but we have a lot of scripture on this that you can read it exactly. There really isn't any book of the Bible that would ever teach that these promises could be stripped from these people based on any kinds of behavior of, bad behavior that we all commit. Nor can the promises of the Bible that are made toward the whole world through Jesus ever be taken from us. Like, if we hold on to him, it's a sure thing. He is a faithful and true God. So when you specifically go against when you specifically say, well, I think, lots of theology like this, I think that I'm in a group that's like the new Israel, the true Israel. Language like that is where you get into danger. You're talking about replacing people that God made a specific promise to. The Jews aren't really the Jews. Like, what is that?
Yeah, and by the way, it's not just a fringy, small groups here and there that pop up with weird beliefs, which is true also. But that main line of thought, which is Israel has been replaced or upgraded or whatever you want to say, by the church or by believers in Jesus who are not Jewish, like superseding them. That is bad stuff. And it's not only bad, but it's many of the large denominations of our faith teach it. And how did that happen? Like, what in the world? You would think, just as a Berean, somebody who's just about the scriptures and just about what did God actually say about this and that, how could you come to that conclusion? And unfortunately, there's a lot of history behind how that happened, and not so ancient history about how that happened. So, but there is what we would call a theology, I guess, right? Of anti-Semitism, or replacing of the covenants of God with something else, or the people of God with somebody else. How would you put that for a person who hasn't heard that before?
Exactly like that. The term is replacement theology. And even to the extent where, now today it's becoming popular to say, okay, well, I'm not an anti-Semite at all, but, I don't believe that the Jewish people deserve their homeland, their ancestral homelands. Well, at the conclusion of making the Abrahamic covenant in Genesis 15, God says to Abraham, it says, on that day, the Lord made a covenant with Abraham, saying, to your offspring, I give this land from the river of Egypt to the great river, the river Euphrates, the land of the Kenites, the Kenizzites, the Cadmonites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Rephaim, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Girgashites, and the Jebusites. We're talking very specific geography here. And in fact, there's a lot more specific geography mentioned in Scripture. So God's promised this land to his people.
Yeah, all those fancy names that doesn't mean anything to people anymore are just like areas of land. Like, these people lived there, but now I'm giving it to you. This is where you're going to live. This is where you're going to live permanently. So, right, there's that, right? Saying they don't deserve to live there, even though God chose them or something. But now that particular promise is invalidated. Where do we get that? I mean, honestly, I'm asking you as a viewer, where do you get that this land promise is invalidated? I'm just asking, because I don't know everything. Whatever. We each have our histories and studying and looking into these things and being in churches and talking to lots of folks. I've never seen it yet. So help me out. Yeah. Show me what the land promise. Honestly, like, I want to see where people are coming from with these things. So yeah. I'd like to see.
Who wants to follow a God that breaks his promises? When we think it through, it's terrifying. It's also terrifying to malign the reputation of our Creator. It's also terrifying to, if I thought that replacement theology was true, that God made promises and broke them to anyone, I would probably just be a nihilistic atheist. I wouldn't want to follow a God like that. I would make my own morality at that point.
I'm with you. 100%. Well, seriously, why would you? Why would you?
Yeah.
It's a not a good situation, is it? To say, well, God promised you this, but I can break it at any point I want. No matter what you do. Like, oh my gosh. And isn't this, Paul in the New Testament would say the same thing. That's what he was trying to drive home, was like, guys, if he can break the covenant with the Jews, he can break it with you. You Gentile believers, just as easy. In fact, more easily, because you're new to the game. He didn't even have any promises to you, thousands of years ago. Anyways, pray about that, you guys. If you find yourself on the other side of this thought process, like, yeah, I thought we replaced Israel. I didn't think the land of Israel matters anymore. Well, maybe we should think again.
Right. And we say the new covenant from the prophet Jeremiah, which is repeated in the New Testament, as we call it. Just
the New Covenant, by the way. That's the name of the book. New Covenant, right?
Yeah. Behold, the days are coming, declares the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and the house of Judah, because he's faithful to them, and he's faithful to us too. Not like the covenant that I made with their fathers on the day when I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt, my covenant that they broke, though I was their husband, declares the Lord. For this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, after the days that they broke it, right? Declares the Lord. I will put my law within them, and I will write it on their hearts, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people. I mean, I will forgive their iniquity, and I will remember their sin no more. They shall all know me, from the least of them to the greatest. That is the God I want to follow. Wow. I mean, it's so beautiful. And it's very specific. It goes on and on, There's actually the horse gate is mentioned. It's geographically specific. Our God is actually a reasonable kind of being. God says, I give land. I give land to these people. I give land to those people. I think he loves diversity in his creation. He loves people being different colors, just like flowers are different colors. Like, God ain't boring. And God is faithful.
Tweet that.
Yeah. God ain't boring.
Right.
He's a faithful God. So when we get into talking about anti-Semitism and the anti-Semitic rhetoric, we mean anti-Zionism, we mean anti-Semitism both, okay? The land, the promises, the people, okay?
Then just so we are on the same page too, even if you don't think you're one of those folks, right? Hopefully you're not. You say, well, I'm not against the Jews return to the land. I'm just saying the people there are not the Jews. Now we've gone into another. Look, Terrence's face says it all. Like, that's the next. You've crossed over now into, I don't know what you call it. It's a place you don't want to be. Real danger zone. Okay. And in fact, this is where it all eventually goes, and we're going to see that here in a minute. So just try to process this, and to make sure that nobody will, not many, will admit that I'm anti-Semitic, or I believe some of this stuff that's obviously not true and it is evil, but a lot of us do in some way, right? Even if it's just theology class, in Sunday school. Unfortunately, this is where some of it comes from, our churches. There's probably some of it in there for a lot of us. Anyway, just pray on it.
Amen.
And like you say, we have the 300 AD and Constantine, and this is where replacement theology came in. Yes, but this is not a big ancient history lesson, because we're seeing how did the Holocaust even happen? It's insane. How do we get to that point? Well, unfortunately, there's an answer to that. And I know Taryn wanted to touch on that as well. I mean, take your time, do what you're going to do. I'm just.
No, I'm ready for that. Actually, that was beautiful. Yeah. So we know that anti-Semitism and replacement theology rose up in a lot throughout Europe. And by the turn of the century, some of us who are watching probably have, seen the title of it or a few summaries of it, but we're talking about a pamphlet that circulated in Europe called the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. And I'm just going to read a few little excerpts from it, and we are going to link to the Project Gutenberg, love that website, the Project Gutenberg page where you can read the entire thing for yourself. So essentially, the Protocols of the Elders of Zion is an anonymous published work claiming that there were like some kind of secret cabal of Jews. They're linked to the Freemasons, Jewish people who were meeting to control the world and using engineering society and world wars and things like that in order to, there it is, bang, in order to control and dominate the world in some kind of evil conspiracy. So this pamphlet was false. Yeah. And if you look at it, it opens with a few scriptures, as if that would justify or, give it some kind of, Matthew, Mark, Luke. It is near at the door. So we're talking about, it's so hard. I have this, I have my screen very small because I'm looking at a bunch of stuff I have. Ye brethren, do not remain in the dark. Yeah, scroll a little more. Dedicated to the small herd of Christ. Ye brethren, do not remain in the dark, so that the day of the Lord shall not catch ye as thieves. He who suffers to the end shall be saved. So the Protocols begins with like summary by someone who says that they discovered this, and they're anonymous, which, does that sound familiar? Anonymous people yelling at other anonymous people. So this is kind of where the conspiracy stuff starts. Like, well, we can't give our names, and we can't give the names of the people that we saw plotting to take over the world. Like,
but believe me, it's all true. I'm an insider, so I know.
Right, it's all true. Yeah. And this is a short summary of what they say the secret Jewish plot to take over the world, the points that were covered. Okay. Briefly summarize the means by which this world domination is to be achieved are as follows. The national power of non-Jewish states is to be broken down by the fomenting of internal revolutions through appeals to class hatred, and by pretend efforts to obtain greater freedom and privileges for certain classes of the people, using the words liberty, equality, and fraternity merely as catchwords to gain recruits for the Jewish cause. Now, also remember, so this is supposedly a document that leaked in 1897, and yet we're using liberty, equality, fraternity. Those were the catchphrases of the French Revolution. Okay, so they're almost blaming that. They're insinuating from the get-go that was also engineered by Jewish people, just so we're straight here, okay? Autocratic governments which alone are strong must be weakened in the first instance by the introduction of liberalism, which will pave the way to anarchy. Point number 2, and there's 9 of these that I'm going to read. All wars must be shifted to an economic basis, allowing no territorial advantages to result from war, and thus tending to make the Jewish control of wealth the determining factor in war. Okay, so let's get rich off whatever wars may occur in all of the world.
Can I interrupt you for a second?
Yeah.
If you, as someone who's been in these circles in the past, when the words banking cabal, the words, the Jewish control of the money. What was the last thing you said? It was one other phrase that they take from that.
Allowing no territorial advantages to result from war.
Right. War profiteering. That, again, well, what does it have to do with the Jews? You just read it. This is where it comes from. I mean, not
The
that
accusation.
that's the right. It's not that the topic itself or the phrase is incorrect or false. Yes, there is such a thing as people building things for war to profit for themselves, and they don't care about the cause and they don't care about human life. That's a thing for sure. But is this a Jewish thing? Right. That's what the protocols. This document that we are going to link to that you just saw, that Taryn's reading from, is trying to tell you that the ones who profit from war are the Jews, right? So that's when you hear those phrases, that's what it's trying to suck you in to this larger narrative or larger conspiracy of the Jewish people doing it.
Right. Yeah. And we can all appreciate how asinine the assumption that people make who kind of push this kind of rhetoric that a race of people are conspiring something because of their race. There's never been that said about another race that I've ever heard. I mean, I'm sure somewhere in world history.
And by the way, a very, very small, insignificant number-wise race compared to every other race in the earth.
Right.
I want to point that out.
It's a bullying and asinine implicit assumption just on a logic level. So point number 3 that supposedly they discovered the Jewish people were doing. The Jewish international rights are to be strengthened at the expense of the national rights of the several Gentile nations. 4, the non-Jewish states are to be further weakened by promoting false and conflicting political policies, by obtaining secret control over the actions of public officials, by manipulation of the press, check that, and by the gradual elimination of free speech. Sound familiar? I mean, this is what most conspiracy theories sound like. Whoever is being blamed for engineering whatever. And mind you, this is the turn of the century, folks. I mean, it's
last century.
Mm-hmm.
The last century, not 21 years ago.
I'm so old, I still say that. Yeah,
I know. Us 40-year-olds really get lost in the mire sometimes. The turn of the century, when we say that, means 1900.
Yes.
Right. And so, it's just like plug and play. You're replacing some of the ancillary parts, but the core is always the same. It's really ridiculous or fascinating in a way, because nothing really changes, like the Lord says, right? The more things. Anyways, Ecclesiastes. Go ahead. Go on.
Yeah. Point 5 of 9, the authority of governments where liberalism prevails is to be weakened by the destruction of religion other than the Jewish religion, since it is the conservative and moral force which makes liberal governments possible. 6, in order to overcome the resistance of those states which are unwilling to make submission to the new Jewish power, there must be no hesitation in resorting to violence, cunning, hypocrisy, bribery, fraud, and treason, or to the seizure of the property of others. 7, the destruction of the social and economic structure of Christian states will also be brought about by the destruction of industrial prosperity through speculation and constant strikes, throwing masses of workmen out of employment, artificially raising wages, thus increasing the cost of the necessaries of life, and finally by bringing about a general economic crisis and the disorganization of financial systems. The financial strength of the various non-Jewish states will also be undermined by causing them to overburden themselves with foreign and national loans on an ever-increasing scale, which will ultimately lead to bankruptcy. And there's 2 more to go. 8, upon the social and political chaos created by these various means, a Jewish dictatorship is to be gradually built up, principally through the terrible Jewish power of the purse and through the other great Jewish powers of control over the press and over the revolutionary labor movement. Finally, point 9, during the period of transition from Gentile to Jewish political control in every state, there will be a secret government by the Jews, brought about through the manipulation of the press, misleading public opinion, mass terror, weakening the initiative of the Gentiles, misdirecting their education and sowing discord among them. So when Hitler wrote Mein Kampf, jumping ahead about 20 years after this was published, and when Hitler published Mein Kampf, basically Mein Kampf walked people as an everyman through his experience, where he begins his book kind of saying, oh, I was this innocent, young German boy, and I started, my life experiences. I never believed that anti-Semitic rhetoric had anything to it. I thought it was nonsense, Hitler begins. And then he walks you through how he slowly uncovers the truth in his life experience, which is this kind of stuff. So the reason why Mein Kampf was basically so effective was that it was like the quintessential frog being boiled slowly. He starts out like, I wouldn't believe any of this sort of thing. I wouldn't believe that Jewish people are taking over the world. I believed that was nonsense. But slowly I discovered that it was true. And you have this fomenting anti-Semitism going on for so many decades in Europe before, and even before this pamphlet was published. So you're talking about a fire that Hitler just walked by and threw a little match. And Europe is burning.
It was right. It was already, embers were already there, and he was no fool. He knew exactly what the conditions were. I mean, he wrote that from jail, correct? So he tried a little insurrection there, a little early, but he knew this. What you really needed to stoke was the imagination and the conspiratorial belief that you're not in control of your country or your society, and there's this evil cabal who is really in control and who's really taking over step by step. And see, here's where they did this, and see, here's where they did that, and see, they wrote about it. So obviously, it's right. Yes, as you say, this is not. Unfortunately, this is not a relic of the 1920s or 30s. Yeah.
And we're not discussing Hitler's anti-Semitism today because there wasn't even more murder happening in communist Russia under Stalin of the Jewish people. But Hitler blamed communism on the Jews, as does the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. The Bolshevik Revolution is blamed on the Jewish people. They're linked to Freemasons. It's the same old bag. So when we talk about National Socialism in Germany, we're talking about more of a right-wing anti-Semitic rhetoric. And that's what we are responsible for today if we're in the right wing.
Can we repeat that? Because, look, we said earlier that Taryn and I are both on the right, okay? It's true. I always have been, as far as I know. As a political person, right? Believe in what government's role is and strength of militaries and all that stuff. For economic freedom, right? These are all right-wing things. But I can remember, because you're presented with these facts in as a kid about the Holocaust and about how Hitler came to power and all these things that he's saying that Taryn is telling you. Even if you don't know where they came from. But the point is, it happened, and you're told that, well, this is right. The communists were the left side, and the fascists were on the right side. And like Hitler, National Socialists. Wait, they're called socialists. That must mean they're on the left. That's what we're told. Coming up in politics, like I was, you're told no. Hitler is actually a left winger. It's honest to God, and you probably believe that, viewer, or maybe you've heard it, and Hitler really wasn't. He's not representative of conservative, what we would call conservatism or right-wing thought or whatever. Mussolini, like all these guys kind of agreed on a lot of stuff, and they were definitely opposed to socialists, to the communists, to the Russian version, to the Eastern Europeans, and all this stuff. There's no doubt, if you just look at it non-passionately and kind of step back a second, there's no doubt that the Hitler's movement, whatever you choose to call it, whatever they choose to call themselves, it's irrelevant to me. This clearly was a right-wing movement, and their a lot of their talking points, you can carve a few words out and leave about 90% of the speeches in there, and you've got a modern-day populist right-wing speech about borders, about getting, people who come into the country, about economic prosperity, about fighting the socialists, the communists, keeping them at bay, the education of our children, the minds being warped by the socialists, right? All that stuff is the same. So I'm just saying, it doesn't make you, just because you're on the right, it doesn't make you a Nazi, okay? It doesn't make you a Hitler person, but we have to admit simple facts. I mean, at some point, right? Like, this is where it came from, and he used, that platform to promote this anti-Semitic stuff.
Yeah. I mean, you're exactly. We're not talking about Hitler because he's the quintessential boogeyman here. We're talking about Hitler because his rhetoric mimics the rhetoric that we are seeing in the right wing. And really, when we talk about left and right, in a sense, I don't see it that way anymore. I use the term because I will gladly stand with other Christians that I don't know if I would. I feel responsible for the right. I probably would classify myself as an independent agent. But I think a lot of us feel that way these days, and that has no bearing on this discussion because I'm very conservative in most respects. But yeah, anyway, so we're talking about Hitler because it actually is pertinent to this topic. And it's tough to bring his name up in all these things because we sort of have Hitler burnout. Like, he's just the quintessential boogeyman of every conversation.
Right. Everybody's Hitler, no matter what. If you don't agree with them, they're Hitler.
Yeah. But this is why, Hitler wasn't the only reason why a bunch of Christians in Europe went out and hunted Jews down and tortured them and killed them and burned them. This was already, the stage was set, and he came along and took on the primary role. So anyhow, I think we're ready to dive into some of our Ghost Ezra QAnon.
Yes, let's give a disclaimer of hide your children, and I'm going to show you. All right, stand by.
And again, Ghost Ezra is, for those who don't know.
Sorry, I can only do one thing at a time over here. I'm very slow.
Yeah, no, I think that.
Yeah, Ghost Ezra is who has become a very, very popular influencer and was an early on proponent in the Q world, spreading the Q drops and these things. Today, like in 2021, there's a lot of disavowing him because, he's only out for himself and gaining followers. Whatever. Okay. I think that the movement right now is very splintering, right? They're kind of going after what, how can I make a living and whatever, or where do we go from here? But there's no doubt this guy was a huge, one of the main influencers and has one of the biggest followings. And this is the recent, I'm going to show you a couple of screenshots. He ran off to Telegram. Okay. That's what we we're talking about earlier. And a lot of, look, I'm on Telegram, I use it. But you know who used it really first a couple of years ago? ISIS did, because it was super secure. No one could track them. So that's why you go there. Anyways, so Ghost Ezra has established a base here, and this is from May the 9th. Okay, so 6 weeks ago. And again, this has over 6,000 at this time when I made the screenshot. It had over 6,300 comments and over look at right here, 241,000 views. Right? And here's the statement that got all these comments and views. 100 million armed men and armed and awakened patriots is a dangerous thing. This is Q talk. We know that, right? Patriots awakened. Now he throws an armed. That number only increases by the day. So he's saying there's 100 million, I guess, Americans or maybe people throughout the world that are red-pilled, okay, that are awake. Zoom in here. And this is a dangerous thing to the bad guys, he's saying, right? Who are the bad guys? That number will only increase by the day. Keep waking up because this genie is never going back in the bottle. We the people, obviously appealing to America's Constitution, are coming after the synagogue of Satan. God always wins every single time. Oh, he sounds like a Christian because he's quoting the Bible. He's quoting the book of Revelation. Did you know? Revelation 2, I think it's 2:9 and 3:9. Synagogue of Satan. And then God always wins. Well, that sounds biblical. Sort of. Doesn't it? Couldn't it be in there somewhere? But look at all these things that he's tying together, okay? 100 million armed, awakened patriots. It's going up. That number will never go down. Never going back in the bottle, right? In other words, they can't stop us. We the people are coming after with the arms, the synagogue of Satan. Well, who does he mean by that? This is a huge engagement. Even that little, your average person, do they know what that means, Taryn? Any of that?
I don't know. I think I mean, this is one of the worst things that happened when the Bible was translated to English in certain older translations was the word ecclesia, meaning assembly, is translated two different ways when it's really the same word. Whenever it's used negatively, like the synagogue of Satan that's referred to in Revelation, it's translated synagogue, but it's the same word as the church.
Yeah,
and,
right.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't it be translated Church of Satan?
Church of Satan, yeah.
Yeah.
Because they're trying to create the translator had a division in their mind anyway, whether it's subconscious or it's overt, between the Jewish people and the followers of Yeshua, the Jewish Messiah, Jesus, which is like, but I think, a lot of people know this, but the way this is being used is a racist, horrific kind of statement that the Bible.
And I can affirm that because I came out of a quote unquote church, culty church that taught that exact thing, that said that scripture that calls the Jews the synagogue of Satan refers to all the Jews in the land of Israel today. They're fake, they're phony, they're not real. You can hate them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this is not a theory. That's exactly what it means. And when you tie these concepts together, that's what Ghost Ezra is talking about. And I want to show you one other thing now that's even worse. Here's what we were mentioning earlier. So this channel on Telegram, Ghost. By the way, what does his name mean? You can only speculate on that, but I think he's referring to the ghost of Ezra Pound. Ezra Pound was a poet, but he turned into a propagandist on the radio in Europe, worked for Italy, the fascists there, telling everyone how evil the Jews were in Europe. Okay? Anyways, here's the breakdown. It has, again, at this point, which is May 26th, so now 1 month ago, Ghost Ezra channel has 335,000 members. Who are those people? Are they all, nameless, faceless people in a basement? Or are they actual human beings out in the world that you know? 335,000 members who has gone from anti-Semitic, which you just saw, this, to Holocaust denialism in less than a week. It is also networking. Here's why we're talking about this especially. It is also networking the QAnon adherents in that channel to more extreme, this means extreme groups on Telegram. So they're funneling the Q people through Ghost Ezra into even worse groups. On Telegram, it has become a hub for radicalization. And we know, okay, everyone's sick of hearing that term or whatever. Oh, it's a left-wing term. But it's real. And this is where he's posting now. Here's what, when it says he's graduated to Holocaust denialism. Here's Ghost Ezra. Again, has God knows how many comments and stuff now. But look what he posts. Posts a 5-year-old picture with the countries of Europe. And it says 18 countries don't want you talking about this. Usually the first sign to start talking about it. Well, if you blow up this picture, I didn't get the whole photo. And here's one of the comments: exposing the Jews is our mission, cross. Right? You see it? Christian cross. Mission with a capital M, meaning our Christian mission, exposing the Jews. Here it is. Countries living under Holocaust, quote unquote, Holocaust. Can you read this okay, you guys? I don't know if it comes across good.
It looks good to me. It looks good to me.
Okay, a little larger. Okay, countries living under Holocaust denial laws. Holocaust in quotes. What does it mean when the Holocaust in quotes, Taryn?
It means we're not believing it. It means the person is saying it didn't happen.
I think Randy is also going to chime in on that.
There you go. Now you got it.
That's exactly what it means.
Yeah.
Duh, quote unquote, Holocaust, right? Mm-hmm. Holocaust, living under Holocaust denial laws. As if your country has a Holocaust denial law, you're oppressed, mm-hmm. right? You're living under it. And let's note the actual countries 1 through 18, blah, 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 blah. And what's the comment about it? Oh, this is a good thing, right? This must be because we all know the Holocaust happened. Nope, they don't want you talking about this. About what? Denying the Holocaust happened. Usually the first sign to start talking about it. So Mr. Ghost Ezra is literally telling all his followers, that number over 300,000, and now might be even more, to start denying the Holocaust.
And not only did the Holocaust happen, friends, it wasn't the only Holocaust that's happened. There are many cases where the Jewish people have been just persecuted and destroyed throughout the world. It's madness.
There's a litany. It wasn't a one-off, is what you're saying.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Yes. And the rhetoric is often, we didn't touch on this, but this connects to the Q movement in the sense that we have a lot of anti-Semitic rhetoric around the world, where people are trained to believe that the Jewish people are drinking the blood of infants. So the whole adrenochrome thing connects to that. And it basically, because, people, when they think children are being hurt, good people stop thinking straight. They get so upset. Mm-hmm. So if you have an enemy that does that sort of thing, or you're accusing them of it, then people kind of don't think logically about, well, wait, what's the evidence for this? There's no evidence. Okay, let's keep going. We got more.
Right. Well, let's see. I didn't have any more pictures, I don't think. Wait, maybe I do. Hang on.
I have some horrible ones.
Great. Horrible.
Yeah, you're sharing the stuff that there are pictures of images from that just haunt me, but I don't want to share them.
You mean the blood libel stuff? What do you?
Yeah, or the Star of David is the star of.
Oh, the Ray fan. Yeah. There's a whole industry about how the Jews are of the devil, and usually, not every time, but usually it does tie into the actual state of Israel, which means now you're making it into a real world situation. But why do you think it's even pointless to even share like news headlines or like this happened and this happened? Synagogues have gotten shot up. The Pittsburgh thing just recently in America, recently, like last week. I forget where, maybe California or somewhere. Because it was a synagogue, somebody shot into it and drove away. What's that about? Why? Yeah. Other than there's a spiritual problem, right? There's a satanic problem, all right, but it's not with the Jews. Right? Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. They're not going around shooting up the church or the mosque. They want to be left alone. I mean, I know Jewish people, okay? I know maybe many of you don't, but Tara and I both grew up in the same part of the world, and there were a lot of Jewish people there, a lot, in all our schools, in all our towns. I knew them. I was friends with them. Not every single Jew was my friend, but like, they're just people, man, and they really just don't want to be bothered. And because they know what the history is. They know when they start becoming, visible and in the front of anything, it turns out bad for them. And most of them not rich. Okay, I have news for you. They don't control the money. They don't control the banks. They were just as poor as I was. The ones that I knew, or you want to call lower middle class, whatever. So yeah, this gigantic thing really feeds on the fact that you don't know any of them.
Yeah.
Personally, right? They're not regular people. It's just some boogeyman out there that you can blame stuff on. Anyways, so I think where we're going with, I'm trying to find maybe one other thing we can show, because I don't really want to show a lot, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
it's gross.
It is gross. There's no, there's not a lot of awareness, I would say, right now among those on the right that this is taking off very quickly online. So our concerns would be that this be, nipped in the bud, because if those of us who are, followers of Jesus can stop this kind of racial hatred, we want to do that. We're completely horrified by it, and I'm sure that if you're, an evangelical who's in the Q movement right now watching this, you're probably horrified by it as we are. So we're not trying to paint all of you with that broad brush, but rather to say, even if you think there's something to it, like, reach out and stop this rhetoric, speak against it. I mean, the symbolism too. There's a problem with all this symbolism, like using this satanic star looks like this Star of Rephaim, and wow, that's disgusting.
Yeah, here I just wanted to show this one more thing, and then we'll move on. So if you don't know who this young person is, well, good. But he's been around for quite a while now, and anyways, he's very influential for some reason. This is, I guess, is he still on Twitter? I'm not sure, but this is very recent. Yeah, June 21st. He must be. That's 4 days ago, guys. Mm-hmm. Nick Fuentes is, even though he has a Hispanic last name, you think, oh, how could he be into this stuff? He's a white supremacist, and he's one of the main ones in America right now. I don't want to hear any more about America First, obviously referring to right-wing conservative Trump people, right? I don't want to hear anything more about America First from people who grovel before Israel and apologize at Holocaust museums. Whoa. Okay. What is he talking? First of all, he's talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene, who made some really stupid, asinine comments comparing things to the Holocaust, so maybe it wasn't so bad or whatever. And she actually went to the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. for the first time in her life. Excuse me. And came out feeling bad about what she said because, oh yeah, this was real and it was bad. And how dare I compare something to that? Well, thank God we finally got to that point. Okay. Even though it took a little too long and you're a public figure and you don't know about this stuff. Anyways, and Nick Fuentes and the white supremacists, Nazis in America are not happy about that she did that. You're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to acknowledge Holocaust at all. And what he terms as groveling before Israel. Groveling before Israel. This is the I don't know. I mean, it's the terminologies that you're going to hear, right? It's the spin and the story about, God forbid we want Israel to exist means you're groveling before them. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And if you're providing them with any kind of intelligence or weaponry, God forbid, or selling them stuff, then you're in it with them, and you're just a slave state of the Jews.
Yeah.
And of course, you've got why she was apologizing. I don't get it. This is not one random dude, right? He's got a whole army of folks. How long until DeSantis takes his trip to the Wailing Wall? Like, that would be such the worst thing possible. Anyways, I don't want to get into all this. It's making me angry a little bit, Taryn. Help me out.
I'm there. I don't really get angry over very many things. This steams me like nothing else, and I'm glad I didn't share the images that I saved, because most of them were of symbology. I very much agree with the comedian George Carlin when he said, "Leave the symbols to the symbol-minded." It is symbol chasing. Let's even say outside of the QAnon movement, a lot of Christians who are into like prophecy, they chase symbols that supposedly are occultic or this or that. You know what? I think that the Bible teaches that we don't need to run around chasing our tails about whatever symbols evil people use to communicate whatever they want to communicate with one another. I don't really care. We're supposed to evangelize them, okay? And just because somebody uses a star for this, someone can use a star for something else. It's a tool. It's like a wrench. You know, I can take a wrench and dismantle a stadium where people are sitting and they will all fall to their deaths. I can take a wrench and I can fix something with it, okay? It's just a tool. Like, it's superstitious, and the superstition of chasing the meaning of random symbols. What is the star? What is the Baphomet? What is the Freeman? Just stop. You don't have to live in that kind of superstitious darkness if you follow Christ, and who cares what evil people do with their stupid symbols? It doesn't matter. Like, that's my little symbol rant in general. Yeah.
It's true though, right? I mean, that's like a lot of us get sucked into this, and I feel, I don't know, maybe it's because we feel clued in and special now, or chosen by God to see the truth. A lot of that is at play, I think, especially with most folks who are into this stuff, who end up being Holocaust deniers eventually, but you don't start off that way usually.
Right.
You know, unless your family's already into it, you're not. You get moved along by the evil spirits, basically, into that mode. But it does all start off with, well, there must be a international cabal of Satan worshipers who are doing bad stuff, and you know they're up to no good, because I'm not one of them. I'm on God's side. God always wins. And if I can't, tell the truth, what there must be the bad guys trying to stop me. It must be the devil trying to stop me. If there's a Holocaust denial law in my country, the reason why there's laws, guys, is because it leads to very bad outcomes. All right, it's going to happen again. Yeah. Because as you see. Doesn't matter what country you're in or what laws you have. It's going to eventually creep up again and again and again. And for whatever well, we know the reasons, but for whatever reason, folks who are again drawn into QAnon stuff with other things a lot of times are now just being herded into this this thinking. I just saw I didn't grab it as an image, but it's kind of humorous. I think it was yesterday or the day before. Some cute person on one of the boards is is upset because their local printer, like a printing company for like bumper stickers or something, wouldn't print out their Q related or something, or a WW1GA or whatever, that thing. And they're like, boy, I can't find any printers who will print out these bumper stickers. They must all be controlled by the Jews too. Yeah. So I have to laugh, Tara. Otherwise, I don't know what might happen. But yeah. The Jews and the printing companies. You know how that goes. They restrict your liberty.
Just quickly touch on the discussion of the history of the swastika as a symbol, because we have like hand-woven African baskets from long before Hitler with swastika design on them. It was not called that. Like, it didn't mean what Hitler used it for. We know Madame Blavatsky, the great occult lady, creepy writer, used it. Hitler may or may not have been inspired by that. We don't really know. Does it matter? No. Some people use it one way. It's a shape that you draw. I'll bet that children all over the world doodled something like that on the ground before paper even existed. I mean, honestly, it's just a shape, okay? It doesn't mean one thing throughout all history. Neither does anything else. Neither does any other shape. I mean, we saw somebody put a cross on their evil, racist, anti-Semitic post. So does that mean the cross is evil now?
Mm-hmm.
Like, come on, guys. We aren't going to use one criteria for the Star of David or whatever, and then use something completely more permissive for our own. Oh well, this was you can watch people say, well, the swastika, trying to like liberate it or something, but then they also turn against the Star of David, basically, like the national symbol of Israel, like, which also I'm sure many people have doodled 6-pointed stars, 2 triangles interlocking. It's kind of it's a normal doodle, like before it meant anything to anyone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, getting into the symbology of things it's like a dog chasing its tail around a tree. It goes nowhere, and doesn't make any sense to me. Anyway.
I mean, we've been accused. We know other teachers and ministers have been accused of this or that because you happen to have a Star of David on your whatever. All of a sudden, you're fill in the blank, right? You worship Molech or something. Don't you know what that means? Right? That's where you're coming from, and
what it means to who?
It's such a waste of time. I completely agree. Okay, so let's try to bring this in for a landing here, because we can go on forever.
Yeah. Okay.
Especially us, the two of us are just, if you can't tell, our hearts about this are very, very passionate and inflamed over this situation generally, and that it would ever be a thing to exist. Number one, to try to kill off a whole race of people, just throwing them in ovens. I mean, it's just like so deeply offensive. And then when you discover, like, hey, God actually called them and promised them a lot of stuff, and maybe that's the reason why all this is happening. It's anyways. So our hearts are in this all the way, right? This is not a temporary thing or some kind of statement or some kind of anti-Q people stuff to make fun of people. This is just very deeply held conviction for both Taryn and me. Taryn and I even. Sorry, she's my editor too. I gotta watch that.
I say that too.
Oh, well then I'm cool with that. So anyway, if we can go on and on and on for hours and hours. We'll probably end up doing more episodes about this thing, because it's not dying, as you saw, with the Ghost Ezra thing and these hundreds of thousands of folks. I mean, it doesn't mean everyone agrees with somebody you follow on Telegram, right? You can follow somebody who you don't like or don't respect or agree with just to see what they're saying. I get that, but at a certain point you're like, whoa, right? He's hitting a chord, a note somewhere in the psyche, and a lot of chords, and I think that's his intention, him or her or they or whatever. Kind of like the Q thing, right? The Q right from the beginning was an operation to draw in as many people as possible in whatever way works. I really believe that. Whatever language you had to use to get that done, let's mobilize somebody somehow. Anyways, so that's what we've seen. So to get to the landing pad on this, I don't know. We have to take responsibility, like the title of the show. I think we have to say, look, if we're on the right, however you define that, conservatives, whatever, we've got to accept that it's in our camp. And there's no really other way to do it. To say that, yep, this is our folks. It's happening right now. It's not ancient history. It's not Constantine. It's not Hitler. It's 2021, Ghost Ezra, etc. And we don't want to point the finger at one person. Obviously, it's not Nick Fuentes or whatever, but it's a very real condition, and people are going to be just, we would think, sucked more and more into that side when they see nothing is really happening, right? There is no storm that has happened. There is no great punishment of evildoers. There's no return to the guy we like in office. Mm-hmm. All that stuff's not going to happen. Yeah. So you have a choice to make right then. And some of us, unfortunately, will choose to hate the Jews and blame them. And then some people are going to do something about it or want to do something about it physically. And what were you going to say, Taryn?
I said, yeah.
Oh.
But I have just a request that if you're tracking this new development, please reach out. Please reach out, and we are monitoring and tracking it as best we can, but more hands on deck is always a great idea.
Yeah.
The ResQ show, yeah.
For sure. Yeah, be our official correspondent of how the anti-Semitism is going. I mean, it's a dark job, I guess, but we welcome it for sure, because it's just impossible to keep track of all this stuff. Even if you're full time doing it, it's tough to make a list because it's everywhere, and unfortunately it's spreading again. Just like I think Terrence was right on it to do this recent history of it. It's just this is what happened in Europe. This is exactly what happened there. This is why the Holocaust occurred, because the free peoples of Europe decided their life sucks, and they have to blame somebody, and the politicians were in on it too, and we've got to get our guns and get to work, and burn houses down and burn businesses down and get them out of our country, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then when you look back and take a wide view, this is the same thing that's been happening since, I don't know, thousands of years now. When God chooses something, the devil hates it. And so just be aware of that, that these covenants, these promises, and by the way, we're going to link a whole bunch of Bible references, and so you can study on this in our comments here below on YouTube, as well as our website. So please go to resqshow.com when you can and pull those and just really go over them and share it with your friends and members of your family or church who may be, God forbid, involved in this stuff, to know what is the truth, right? We say the truth is out there. Well, the truth is a man. And by the way, somebody jumped ugly with me for saying that. Like, oh, well, we know the truth and Q knows the truth. I'm like, the truth? What are you talking about, dude? Like, if you're a believer, if you believe in Jesus, he is the truth. That's not, what did he call that? Not dog whistling or whatever, trying to, what's it called? Virtue signaling.
Virtue signaling. That's such a funny term.
I was virtue. I got to learn so much new vocabulary. When apparently we are virtue signaling when we quote the Bible.
Clutching our pearls.
Yeah, the words of Jesus, who you claim to follow, and it's not even a condemnation. He just says, "I am the truth."
Yeah.
I'm not making anything up by saying the truth is a man.
I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but through me. He is the way.
In the King James.
Mm-hmm.
English. Yeah, right. That's all we're saying. And so don't worry about whatever somebody else tells you is the truth about this or that. If it has nothing to do with Jesus, don't worry about it. Honestly, right? He knows you have to live in reality and in the real world. Yes, things are true. Things are true. And things are false. But the barometer and the gauge of that, first of all, know the Lord. Right, that's the beginning of wisdom. You're going to start there. And then everything else will fall into place. And he'll tell you, hey, yeah, this might be a fact, but it's not the truth. You know what I mean? These things are not important for you.
Amen. Yeah. If you're watching this, if you're moderating this video on social media, if you agree with us, if you don't agree with us, the truth is a man. God, the Creator, entered into human flesh and died for your sins and loves you immeasurably. He made all the beautiful things that you love on this earth, the trees and nature, animals, all of the things that we all enjoy. Many of us in the West really enjoy nature and the beauty of it. And the person that made you and loves you. And he's God. And that is the truth. Amen. He also made promises. He made promises to the children of Israel. Doesn't matter what anyone does. His promises are good and lasting. And we can all come to him and we can know him.
Amen. Forever. That's called evangelism right there. Spread the gospel. Somebody was commenting on YouTube, just spread the good news is all you can do. Well, that's it. That's the good news. It's the best news of all.
Amen. That's true.
Anyways, okay, so let's wrap it up here. I thank you, my friend, for being able to do this today, and we'll be back soon enough, I'm sure, on this particular topic. And also, I believe it's the next show we do will have to address this poll that we put out about a week and a half ago. Because well, first of all, it's I think it's been on my soul like forever to talk about the things that are widely accepted by ordinary folks, not checking out 8chan, the drops and all this stuff and being a nerd about it, but just your average everyday, people, American voters, your family, your Aunt Bessie on Facebook. What they actually are saying and believing the past 6 or 8 or 10 months that actually is not true, and that Q made it up. And so I'd like to get into those things that I only have a list of 3. It could be a lot more than that, but we only narrowed it down to 3. We'll tell you the major things that were actually not true that you might think are true, and that Q made them up, the QAnon, whatever system you want to say. And the whatever feedback we get, and there has been some, none of it positive, by the way. But that's cool. We're going to address that. I like those are the fun ones to see where people are at. Okay, what people are saying and what do I believe is not true? How could that be? Well, we're going to go over that. All right. So that's next time. Sister Taryn, we thank you. We want to hear from you all, by the way. Again, just so you know, we don't want to be the two of us yapping all over the place. We want to hear you from you. We want you to participate. We want to interview you. We want you to sit here with us for however long and go through what's on your mind and your experiences or your caution to others, or maybe you're having a hard time accepting these things as man, I was lied to, or man, I got to change some stuff, or man, I'm not into this anti-Semitic stuff. I got to get out of here. Good. Let's talk about it. Reach out to us on Twitter. Again, as you see below, email addresses are also in the description, or just go to our website, ResQshow.com, and fill out the contact form, and then talk to you then. All right, friends. Love you much. Ms. Taryn, have an awesome however many days it's going to be, and we'll talk soon.
All right.
All right. See you, friends. Till next time, ResQ Show. I'm Chris. That's Taryn.
Yeah.
Love you all.
Stay awesome, people.
Bye.